Hold on. Preparing a live stream. Okay. Now, I'm ready. Here's my live. We should have a whole bunch of more people wanting to join. I feel like such a technical idiot when it comes to these things, because now I'm having trouble figuring out where all our students are. Maybe
I've had 3 semesters of Zoom law school so far, and every single class we end up into weirdness. And so you are not alone, trust me.
Oh, man. Well, I've held, I don't know how many WebEx hearings, hundreds by now, and I'm not sure I'm getting much better at it. Oh, darn it. I'm sending a quick email to Kyle at the bar, and let's see if he can help. I also have an instruction sheet. Let me see if I can figure this out. I clicked on the participant. Where are my other participants? So I think I've done what I am supposed to. Just need all our students. I call Kyle and
I was going to offer to text him if you'd like.
no, he gave me a number. Let me try that first. Of course, they could be waiting. I don't know.
Usually it pops up because I've been using Zoom quite a bit on my meetings. Usually it pops up if they're waiting.
Yeah, hi, Kyle. It's Judge Butler. I'm sorry to be a pest, but I've got the video up. I've got the live stream going, but I'm waiting on students still.
Yep, we just figured out, Harry, and just sent them out to the coaches. So you should be getting students into your courtroom probably within the next few minutes.
Just making sure I didn't mess something up. Thank you so much.
Let me verify, sir. You have Laura, I will be sending you rosters, but you're in courtroom 2, correct?
Correct.
You're going to have the team animal on prosecution and team Kermit on defense.
Animal and Kermit. Got it. Thank
We'll get
you.
those shortly, of course.
All right. Appreciate the help.
Of course. Bye.
See ya. All right. I think you guys heard that, right?
Yep.
Yes.
Okay.
And they're going to send, he said he was going to send the rosters to us with the actual names of the kids.
That's what he said.
Okay.
Let's see, animal and Kermit. Phew. Well, usually what happens is once I go through a little bit, I'll ask you guys to just do a 30-second, 20-second introduction, who you are, what you do, that kind of thing. And then we'll go through the rules, the oaths, including the oath for the scoring judges. Go through the trial. At the end, you guys are tallying scores. I usually give a couple of comments. Depending on timing, we are running now, of course, a little late. If you give a minute or 2 minutes of general comments, I always think it's helpful. I counted up, I think this is my 12th year doing this while on the bench, and I'm never ceased to be impressed by the quality of these students. They're unbelievable. They're better than a lot of lawyers we see, and I know Lila knows that.
Yeah.
Both as being my past clerk as well as her own practice. So, all right, I'm going to start admitting folks now, just so you know.
Thank you.
If we get everybody on, I'll confirm too with the students that we have everybody. We're just starting to admit folks, so hang in there, guys. And as we get more, and I'll confirm that we have everybody that we need with each team before we proceed. And looks like Laura just sent the rosters by email if you guys have access to your emails. We've got folks starting to join, so hang in there, guys, while we get everybody. I know we're a little behind, but we'll give everybody the time allotted. And I mean, it's 0 degrees on a Friday night. Come on, what else could you be wanting to do?
True.
Serious.
Judge Butler, is there a link in your email to those rosters? I didn't get that email. I wonder if just you got it.
Oh.
Wondering if you could put it in our chat or something like that.
You think I know how to do that? I can. Oh, Lila, what's your email? I'll send it to you guys.
Sure, it's Lila at soul-law-llc.com.
Oh, come on. You could have been easier than that.
I
Doug, what's
know.
yours?
Apparently there's a lot of people with soul law.
Doug, what's your email?
dstevens@celaw.com.
CE Law?
Yep.
All right, Robin?
R. Spearn, SPEIRN,
Yeah.
22 at law.du.edu.
Law.du?
Yep,
.edu?
correct.
Okay, I'm sending it now. If you don't get it in the next minute, let me know. I'm going to keep admitting folks.
Thank you.
Sure. Yeah, we're getting there, folks. I think we need maybe just a couple of more. I think we're still waiting. I'll confirm in just a minute that we have everybody before we proceed, guys. So just relax. We're not going to start without you guys having your full team admitted.
And I did get the email, Judge Butler. Thank you.
Great.
As did I.
I did as well.
That means I can type well, or at least accurately. Maybe not well, but accurately. I got. All right. I think we're probably getting close. I'm guessing maybe one more. Yep, okay. All right, let's see how we're doing here. There are a number of preliminary matters. I think the teams know that. But before we get there, can I confirm whoever the spokesperson wants to be for Team Animal? Do you have everyone on your team present?
I believe we do, Your Honor.
Thank you. For Team Kermit, can I confirm whether you have everyone from your team present?
I can confirm.
Perfect. Thank you so much, guys. All right. I'm Judge Butler. I am a judge in the Boulder District Court. Let me first ask each of our scoring judges just to introduce themselves so you know who your jury audience is this evening. Ms. Barron, why don't you start since you're in my upper left box?
Very good. My name is Robin Spearin. I am a 3L part-time law student at DU Law currently, and also work for in-house as a contracts manager for a UK-based holding company.
Thank you. Ms. Soul?
Hi, my name is Lila Soul, and I am an attorney. I was, my first legal job was a clerk for Judge Butler here. And I now have my own law firm. I do primarily domestic law.
And Mr. Stevens?
Hi, my name is Doug Stevens, and I do commercial and general civil litigation for law firm of Kaplan and Ernest here in Boulder.
Thank you. All right, folks, let me just go through the preliminary matters. First of all, is Team Animal ready to proceed?
Yes, Your Honor.
Is Team Kermit ready to proceed?
Yes, we are, Your Honor.
All right. Do the judges, scoring judges now have the trial roster, I believe. So I think we're good there. If there are any video recorders present and being used, both teams would have needed to approve the taping of the round. I have to inform teams as well as any gallery members, the Colorado Bar Association may be taking photographs of the competition during the round, and that team participation in the state tournament grants automatic permission in the use of these photos by the Colorado Bar Association. If there is anyone in the gallery who is connected with teams not competing in this round, student members and coaches of other schools or of the same school but a different team, you are asked to leave the courtroom other than the two exceptions under Rule 4.3. No recesses will be allowed with the exception of those granted for a health emergency, and especially not between the end of witness exam and the beginning of closing arguments. I always think that's a funny rule because does that mean you can only have your health emergency outside of those times? It doesn't make sense. But anyway, I didn't make the rules up. All right. Each of the scoring panelists, do you have any reason to believe that you would be biased in judging either team? Ms. Spearin?
No.
Ms. Soul?
No, Your Honor.
Mr. Stevens?
No, Your Honor.
Thank you. To remind the teams and coaches that any disputes arising out of this competition must be reported in accordance with the competition rules. Remind the teams that their compliance with time requirements will be considered in scoring individual performances. I'm going to just ask you guys to honor system to confirm that no coach or team member is seated in my jury box. While I'm looking at my jury box, nobody's seated there, so perfect. All right. At this time, I'm going to ask the prosecution to introduce your participating team members, both attorneys and witnesses.
Your Honor, I have just been informed that our timekeeper is in the waiting room hoping to get in.
So sorry, it looks like I had two in the waiting room. Y'all shouldn't have told me you were all ready when you weren't. No, it's all good. I'm kidding. Relax. All right, I think we have everybody now. All right.
Hello.
Okay, can I have introductions from the prosecution of participating team members, please? Somebody from the prosecution? You're muted, I think.
Hi, my name is Talia Kumar. I am a defense for the attorney, an attorney for the defense, excuse me. I will be directing Taylor Perkins and crossing Kyle Kuzak, and I will be doing the closing argument. Thank you. Good morning, Your Honor, members of the jury, opposing counsel. My name is Kasha Hires, and I will be performing the direct examination of Jordan Markowitz, the cross-examination of Avery Becker, and I will also be delivering the closing statement on behalf of the prosecution.
Who else do we have on the prosecution team?
Good afternoon, Your Honor, opposing counsel, members of the jury. My name is Kugler, and today I will be performing the direct of Alex Dufuentes and the Perkins.
Thank you. Next, for the prosecution.
Good afternoon, Your Honor, opposing counsel, members of the jury. My name is Miranda McCoy, and today I will be performing the direct examination of Kyle Kuzak, the cross-examination of Blake Van Owen, as well as delivering opening statements on behalf of the prosecution.
Thank you.
At this time, may our witnesses introduce themselves?
Please.
Good afternoon. My name is Matea Hires, and today I am Alex Dufuentes.
Thank you.
Good afternoon. My name is Kai Salter, and today I am Jordan Markowitz.
Thank you.
Good afternoon. My name is McKenna Selby, and today I am Kyle Cusack.
Okay, your audio is a little glitchy and you were a little quiet, so maybe move a little closer to the microphone. Very good. All right, and for the defense, please.
Good afternoon, Your Honor. I'm Devin Nabaretti. I'm the defense attorney. I will be performing the opening statement as well as the direct for Avery Becker and the cross for Alex Dufuentes.
Thank you. Next for the defense.
Good afternoon. My name is Hannah Goldman. I'll be doing the direct examination of Blake Van Owen and the cross-examination of Detective Markowitz.
Thank you. Next.
Sorry about the confusion earlier. My name is Talia Kumar. I'm an attorney for the defense. I am doing the closing argument. I am directing Taylor Perkins and crossing Kyle Kuzak. May the witnesses introduce themselves at this time?
Yes, please.
Thank you.
My name is Claire Watson. I am playing Avery Becker.
Thank you.
My name is Jacob Fisher. I'll be playing Taylor Perkins.
Thank you.
My name is Charlie Meyer, and I'll be playing Blake Van Owen.
All right, thank you. At this time, I'm going to administer the different oaths for the team members. Let's have you raise your right hands. Team members, do you promise that the presentation you are about to give will faithfully and truthfully conform to the facts and rules of the mock trial competition? And of course, you're all muted, but that's okay. I saw you all say I do. For the witnesses, do you promise that the testimony you're about to give will faithfully and truthfully conform to your witness statements, that you will not add material facts or opinions which are not contained in the case problem, and that you will follow the rules and procedures of the mock trial competition? A lot of muting and nodding, but that's okay. All right, gallery members, I know you can't really participate, but hopefully you're promising to represent yourselves as positive role models and to behave in a manner that exemplifies ethical, professional sportsmanship during and after this mock trial competition round. Scoring panelists, if I can have you take an oath, you promise to adjudicate the mock trial competition as fairly and objectively as possible in accordance with the facts, procedures, and rules of the mock trial competition.
I do.
Yes.
Thank you. All right. Are there any preliminary matters from the prosecution?
Yes, Your Honor. I do have a few preliminary matters.
Please proceed.
The prosecution requests that due to the virtual setting, lawyers may remain sitting for direct and cross-examinations.
Granted.
We also request that any time remaining in closing statements may be used for rebuttal close.
So ordered.
And then on sustained objections, would you like us to request that the testimony is stricken from the record, or should we assume that the testimony has already been stricken?
Technically, the testimony doesn't become stricken, but the jury has been instructed that if I sustain an objection, They are to disregard the question and response. What else, counsel?
We would also like to establish the means for presenting evidence. Given the virtual nature of the proceedings, we request that during the admission of evidence, the witnesses may be allowed to look at the case materials they have been provided in front of them in order to identify them for admission. And then once they have been admitted, with the court's permission, co-counsel will then publish the exhibits to the jury through screen sharing.
That is fine.
Okay, the prosecution has no further pretrial matters.
Thank you. Any preliminary matters for the defense? If someone's speaking, you're muted.
The defense has no preliminary matters, Your Honor. Sorry.
Thank you very much. All right, let's get right at it then. Prosecution, you may make your opening statement.
Yes, Your Honor. And for clarification purposes, can you see and hear me all right?
Yep, I can. And if we have problems, I'm not going to be shy about letting anybody know. Make sure you keep your voices up. Make sure you speak clearly and slowly enough as well. Go ahead.
May it please the court, counsel, members of the jury. We're here today because of tragic arrogance, which led to a tragic choice, which led to tragic consequences. The Colorado high school community mourns the loss of their mock trial coach, Mackenzie Brackman, but the defendant, Avery Becker, a former student and mock trial member at Colorado High School, is not grieving. Why not? Because the defendant murdered Coach Brackman, ending the feud that had been building between them since the day that they met. Now, how do we know that Mr. Brackman and Avery Becker weren't on good terms with each other? Well, let's look back at their time together on the mock trial team. Avery constantly showed up late to practice. Avery was never prepared. Avery didn't listen to their coach's advice. We know that their relationship was strained because one day after mock trial practice, Avery decided to vandalize Mr. Brackman's car. As a result, he was kicked off the mock trial team. Now, this could have been the end of the story had Avery accepted the consequences of their actions. Instead, she made a plan to get back at Mr. Brackman. On March 6th, 2020, Avery Becker traveled to Mr. Brackman's house with the intent to break in and vandalize it, as they'd done before to his car. However, Mr. Brackman was home during the time of the break-in. Alerted to the intruder by his Ring Door app, he grabbed a knife in self-defense. Avery seized control of the knife, stabbed Mr. Brackman just below his shoulder blade, and ran out the front door, leaving him to die on the floor. How do we know that Avery Becker was the one who broke into Mr. Brackman's house? How do we know that they planned to vandalize it? Well, all we have to do is look at the evidence. Today, you will hear from Alex Dufuentes, a student at Colorado High School who was on the mock trial team with the defendant. Alex will testify that she received texts from the defendant indicating that she planned to break in to Mr. Brackman's house and vandalize it. Now, what happens after Alex receives these texts? Surely enough, an intruder breaks into Mackenzie Brackman's house. Now, the defense is going to try and spin this story into one of ambiguity. We're going to try and discredit the investigative work of the police. But today, you will hear from expert witness Detective Jordan Markowitz, one of the first people to arrive on the scene. When he arrives at the home, what does he find? The dead body of Mackenzie Brackman sprawled on the floor with a stab wound in his shoulder and a bloody knife lying beside him. Detective Markowitz begins to look for suspects, and when he learns of the text that the defendant sent Alex Dufuentes, he follows that lead. But what happens when Detective Markowitz gets a search warrant for Avery Becker's phone? Well, Avery claims to have lost their phone the day before the murder. But Detective Markowitz doesn't let this deter him. Today, you will hear him explain to you what he discovered in his investigation, including cell phone records that show that Avery Becker was traveling to Mackenzie Brackman's house just before the murder. The defense is going to say that Avery Becker did not commit these crimes. But today, you will hear from expert witness Kyle Cusack, a certified crime scene reconstruction investigator, who will tell you that this is simply not the case. She reconstructed this crime. and the evidence at the scene pointed her to the conclusion that this murder was not premeditated. She concluded that this was clearly a planned burglary gone wrong. After reviewing the evidence, she concluded that the murder weapon was taken from within Mackenzie Brackman's own home. Ladies and gentlemen, we acknowledge as the prosecution that we bear the burden of proving the defendant's guilt beyond a reasonable doubt, and today we will do just that. At the end of this trial, once you have heard all the evidence, we will ask you to find the defendant guilty of all charges, because tragic arrogance led them to make a tragic choice, murdering an innocent man. And tragically, that choice must have a consequence: the conviction of Avery Becker for the murder of Mackenzie Brackman. Thank you.
Thank you, counsel. Does the defense wish to make an opening at this time?
Yes, Your Honor.
You may proceed whenever you're ready.
Your Honor, before I start, are you able to hear and see me?
Very good.
Ladies and gentlemen of the jury, the prosecution just told you that this intruder and killer is our client, Avery Becker. But Avery Becker is a fallen victim of corrupt, uncertain, and inconclusive evidence. The statements of the prosecution are not evidence in this case. There's no evidence that the intruder in the videos is Avery. Throughout the videos, the intruder is masked, cloaked, and hidden under a devil Halloween mask, a loose-fitting flannel shirt over a black hoodie, black pants, black shoes, and blue rubber gloves. You will not hear the police collect any evidence worn by the intruder from Avery and not from Avery's house, as well as a testimony and no testimonies of any of the items worn by the intruder. In addition, there is nothing at the crime scene that indicates the identity of the intruder. All we know is that the build appears similar to Avery as well as Blair Rawlings. But this description can match anyone. There are no distinguishing features. It could be a guy or a girl for as far as we know. The prosecution will present other information in this case and claim it is evidence that Avery committed this crime. You hear about cell phone location information from the prosecution telling you that this location information from Avery's phone shows that Avery committed this crime. Listen closely. What you hear is technology lacking in precision. As it is not even that important, because Avery will tell you, and the evidence shows, that Avery didn't have her phone on the day of Mr. Brackman's murder, as well as a testimony under oath that Avery did have an alibi on the day, at the time the murder was committed. Anyways, at most, cell tower location can give you a generalized area where the phone might have been. Taylor Perkins, who testified that on the day of the murder, March 6th, that he and Avery ditched school together to look for Avery's missing phone, and she was not committing a murder. Star prosecution witness Alex Dufuentes not only admits to being the last person to physically possess Avery's phone, but also supplied other questionable information in this investigation prosecution will claim is evidence, such as no forensic download of Alex's phone. The only evidence is screenshots of text messages that could have been doctored. Anyone who possessed Avery's phone could have sent those texts. Nothing to prove. Nothing that Alex did not send those texts to himself from Avery's phone. Lastly, that phone that contained the text messages is not accessible and nowhere to be found. On that note, Avery's phone was left unattended at the fry shack on March 5th, the day before the murder, where anyone at the location at the time had the opportunity to take it, including Alex Dufuentes. The testimony revealed that Avery and Mr. Brackman had a strained and difficult relationship. It will not show that Avery killed Mr. Brackman. As the judge has instructed you, the prosecution has the burden of proving the elements of the crimes charged beyond a reasonable doubt. All the information the prosecution will claim as evidence in this case is questionable at best. As the defense, we have no obligation to present any evidence in this case, but we will. You will hear from our client, Avery Becker, alibi witness Taylor Perkins, and defense expert Blake Van Owen, as well as other individuals who had bigger motive. The law enforcement didn't look into any other suspects that had the opportunity and motive to commit this crime, such as Blair Rawlings, who is the student I mentioned earlier that has the same build as Avery. Mr. Brackman lost the case of Jonathan Rawlings, causing him to be the reason that Blair's father is in prison for life. Everyone does immature things, dumb things even. You can see vandalism everywhere, anywhere on public property. You can see it in a public bathroom. Is it wrong to do? Yes. But there is a large difference, not a small, but a significant difference from making a bad decision to vandalize and murder. All the facts and unknowns within this case should be taken into thought so that the real murderer is held accountable for their wrongdoing. In the end, prosecution will fail to leave their burden and find that our client, Avery Becker, is indeed not guilty. Thank you, Your Honor.
Thank you, counsel. Prosecution, you may call your first witness.
Your Honor, the prosecution, Dufuentes to the stand.
Thank you. You're already under oath. You may proceed whenever you're ready, counsel.
Before I proceed, Your Honor, are you able to hear me clearly?
I can hear you clearly, although you've had maybe 2 glitches so far, and let's hope we can just try to roll through without too many more.
Thank you, Your Honor. Good afternoon, Ms. Dufuentes. Could you please state your name and spell it for the court?
Good afternoon. My name is Alex Dufuentes, and my last name is spelled Sifuentes.
And by talking about the mock trial team you're a part of and the relationship between the defendant in this case and the coach of that team, Mackenzie Brackman. What was your relationship like with Becker?
Can you repeat the question? I didn't hear that.
Of course. What was it like with the defendant, Avery Becker?
Avery and I have always been really good friends. She actually convinced me to join the mock trial team when I was a freshman.
Given your personal experience, how was Avery's relationship on the team?
I think Avery always played the victim but didn't really work hard, and I think that they were both pretty frustrated with each other.
What was the result of that mutual friendship?
Mr. Brackman was always telling Avery to do a better job of preparing for practice and tournaments, but she simply refused. The tension between them just got out of hand.
Is there a specific moment you felt embodied that?
I think that it reached a boiling point after Avery came late to practice for like the millionth time. And after that practice, Mr. Brackman demoted Avery to the B team.
I want to talk about the events that led to Avery being kicked off the mock trial team. What did Avery do after being demoted?
Well, she somehow convinced Taylor Perkins, he's Avery's second best friend, to quit the team, and Brackman had to let Avery back on the A team after that.
What happened concerning the mock trial team after Avery got back on?
We went to regionals, and Avery won Best Attorney and Best Closing awards.
Brackman react to that?
Sorry, can you repeat the question?
How did Mr. Brackman react to that?
Well, Mr. Brackman tried to explain to Avery that even though she won those awards, Avery should not confuse good showmanship with good lawyering. And he told Avery that what she did would be considered malpractice in the real world.
What did after Mr. Brackman tried to talk to her?
She was really mad, and so she grabbed a Sharpie off the easel that we were using, and she vandalized Mr. Brackman's beautiful vintage 1986 Porsche 911 with a permanent marker writing "Worst Attorney Award" on the hood. And after that, Mr. Brackman kicked Avery off the team for good.
Now, I want to turn to how Avery Becker responded off the team. What, if any, contact did you have with Avery after Mr. Brackman?
Well, Avery texted me and asked for help to get back on the team.
And how did you respond to that request?
I did think that the team was better off without Avery, but I agreed to try and convince Mr. Brackman to let Avery back on the team on Avery's behalf. But he was just not interested. It was more than just the Porsche incident. It had been everything that had been going on for the past 4 years.
I'd like to discuss your regarding the investigation of this murder. Who, if anyone, contacted you regarding?
I talked to Detective Markowitz at the Denver Police Department about the text messages I exchanged with Avery, and he said that he wanted a full interview.
What text are you specifically referring to?
Avery texted me asking me to get for help getting back on the team. My apologies.
This has been marked as Exhibit 14. Ms. Dufuentes, do you have a copy of Exhibit 14?
Yes, I do.
Do you recognize this?
Yes.
What is it?
These are the text messages that I exchanged with Avery.
An accurate representation of those text messages?
Yes.
This time I move to admit Exhibit 14 as evidence.
Any objection or voir dire?
No objections, Your Honor.
Thank you. 14 is admitted. You may continue.
Are these, first, Your Honor, can I have permission Exhibit 14 to the jury?
You can publish.
Thank you. Now, Ms. Fuentes, original text messages directly printed from your phone.
No, this is actually a printout of the screenshots that I emailed to the detective.
Why didn't you provide the detective with the original?
Well, when my dad yelled that it was time to go for the interview, I completely forgot that my phone was charging. My apologies. And I accidentally left it at home.
What happened once the detective realized the original texts?
Well, we offered to come back with the phone after the interview, but the detective told us that it was okay, and he just asked me to send screenshots of the text instead.
Will you please read the final two texts from Avery Becker?
Yes, it says, "I'm going to wait until he's at work, then break it and trash it. That'll show him."
What was your reaction?
I was worried. I mean, based on those texts, I thought that Avery planned to go to Mr. Brackman's house while Mr. Brackman is at work and trash the place.
I want to address some issues about the defense's investigation into the case. Did anyone investigating the case other than Detective Markowitz?
Yes, I talked to a PI for the defense. I told the investigator that I had no interest in talking to him, but he persisted in asking me a few questions.
Can you describe what happened during that conversation?
I learned that I was basically being accused of faking the text messages from Avery. I would never even consider doing that.
I'm sorry, Ms. Fuentes. Could you please repeat that last? Yeah, I didn't quite catch that.
Oh, yeah, sorry. I would never even consider creating a fake text exchange.
Was there anything else the defense informed you of?
They also accused me of stealing Avery's phone and giving it to some kid named Blair Rollins, who I learned may have been involved in this case.
Did you know Blair Rollins at all?
I knew him, but I didn't have any meaningful relationship with him. We barely knew each other well enough to say hello and goodbye when we cross paths in the hall. My apologies.
How would you like to respond to stealing Avery's phone?
I certainly would not have stolen Avery's phone for Blair Rollins.
Finally, I'd like to further address your friendship with Avery. Did you consider you and Avery to be rivals at all?
No, I wholeheartedly disagree with that. Avery and I weren't rivals in mock trial or anything else. We were teammates and we were friends. I mean, Avery and I liked each other very much, which is actually why Avery texted me to get for help getting back on the team.
And lastly, how has this tragedy perspective of the case?
Mr. Brackman is a great coach, and this whole experience for me has been devastating. I never really thought before how things happening in trials affect people, but this is real. Like, Coach Brackman is dead.
Thank you, Your Honor. I have no further questions at this time.
All right, thank you. Cross-examination.
Good afternoon, Ms. Dufuentes.
Good afternoon.
You say Avery and you are friends, right?
Yes, I consider us to be best friends.
Did you think Avery treated the teammates in a kind manner?
I think she was nice to all of us, but she never prepared for anything, and I think that it just threw the whole team off.
Would you say Avery brought the team down?
I mean, she did throw us all off, but I wouldn't say that she completely brought the team down because she scored really well on tournaments.
Was Avery always late to practice?
Yes.
Did being late constantly make you angry?
I think it made us all angry. Yeah.
Have you asked why Mr. Brackman put up with Avery?
I don't recall ever asking him why he put up with Avery.
Did you look up to Mr. Brackman?
I definitely did. I think that he was a great lawyer and a great coach for all of us.
Did Avery treat Mr. Brackman badly?
I think so. Yes, I think that she could have treated him better, but yeah.
Did you take your work seriously?
Yes, I prepared beforehand like crazy. I did the assignments the night that he assigned it to us, and I was always prepared for everything.
Did Avery always wing it without preparation?
Yes.
But Avery is the one winning the awards, correct?
Yes, that is correct.
Did you like how Avery got awards for winning?
No, I didn't like it, especially because she always made things up on the fly. But, I was happy for her that she did win those awards because we are friends.
Did you think it was fair that Avery won those awards?
No, not exactly, because, mock trial scoring isn't always fair. But I was still a little happy for her because she was my friend.
Do you think it's unfair because of the lack of preparation Avery presented?
Yes, as I said before, she never really prepared for anything before, and I think it drove the whole team crazy.
The whole team, including you, correct?
Yes.
Did Avery leave practice one day very angry?
Yes, I believe that was the day that she vandalized Mr. Brackman's car.
Did Avery leave in a rush?
Yes, I think that Mr. Brackman and Avery were arguing about something.
Was Avery furious at this moment?
Yes.
Objection.
What is your objection?
Could you please re-say the objection? I didn't hear you.
What is the objection, counsel?
The objection is speculation. Testify as to another witness's state of mind.
Now the witness can testify as to her observation of somebody without getting into their state of mind. I'll allow it. You may continue, counsel.
Thank you, Your Honor. Was Avery in his right of mind at this moment?
I don't know. I think so, probably, but at the same time, no.
Avery was then kicked off the mock trial A team, correct?
Yeah, she was kicked off the team for good because Mr. Brackman was furious with her.
Which meant the mock trial team would have to forfeit. What?
I'm sorry, can you repeat the question?
Since Avery was kicked off the A team, the team would have to forfeit what exactly?
I believe that we wouldn't be able to compete because we didn't have enough teammates for the competition.
Did this make you angry?
A little, yeah. I was super prepared for the whole thing, and it did make me a little mad that we weren't going to be able to compete.
After being kicked off the team, did Avery text you?
Yes, she texted me asking for help getting back on the team.
Did the conversation start with, "Hey, Alex, it's Avery"?
I believe so.
Is mock trial really important to Avery?
I believe that it was really important to both of us.
Would you say friends would do anything for each other?
Sure, yeah.
Action relevance.
Your Honor, I'm simply laying out the foundation to the relationship between Alex and Avery, and to simply show the jury that Alex was indeed jealous of Avery due to the lack of preparation Avery showed, although she still won the awards.
You characterized the question, though, was very general as to just sort of all friends and what would they do for another friend. So I will sustain the objection, but you can rephrase it if you wish as to these folks' relationship.
Thank you, Your Honor. I'll move on. Did Avery first text about getting back on the team?
Yes, I believe so.
Were you hesitant to help Avery?
Yes, I believe I was, but I decided to try and help her because she was my friend.
But you did then agree to try to help Avery get back on the A team, right?
Yes, as I said before.
Then, after you agreed to help out, Avery started talking about vandalizing Mr. Brackman's house, right?
Yes.
Which happened right after you agreed to help out.
Correct.
You're asked to bring in the phone that contains the messages between you and Avery to the police, right?
Yes, I told the detective about the text messages and he wanted a full interview.
So was the phone the only device with the text messages between you and Avery?
Well, I believe that Avery's phone also had the text messages on them.
Do you have that phone anymore?
No, I traded it in because the battery was starting to go bad, but I did send the detective screenshots of the text messages.
So the phone that is gone was the only device that contains the text messages aside from Avery's phone?
Yes, that's how text conversations work.
Can texts be deleted?
Yes, they can.
The text could have been sent at any time, correct?
Yes, they could have, but this was sent. I'm sorry, I'm totally blanking on the date, but yes, they could have been sent anytime.
So let's travel back to the day before the murder. You saw Avery after he was kicked off the team, correct?
Yes, I saw her at the fry shack, I believe.
Did Avery thank you for talking to Mr. Brackman about getting back onto the A team?
I don't recall that happening, but she might have.
Did Avery even let you play on her phone?
Yeah, she let me play a new game because my phone was really old, so.
So you had Avery's phone physically in your hands on the day of March 5th, correct?
Yes.
Just to clarify for the jury, you had Avery's phone before Avery physically left the fry shack on March 5th, the day before the murder took place, right?
Yes.
No further questions, Your Honor.
Thank you. Redirect.
No redirect, Your Honor.
Thank you. You may call your next witness.
The prosecution called Detective Jordan Markowitz to the stand.
All right, thank you. The witness is already under oath. You may proceed whenever you're ready.
Good evening, Detective Markowitz. Will you please state your name and spell it for the court?
Jordan Markowitz, Jordan Markowitz.
Thank you. I'd like to begin with your background and experience in homicide investigation. What exactly is your profession?
I work as a homicide detective at the Denver Police Department, and I have a specialized training in cell phone forensic recovery.
And how long have you done this?
I've been with DPD for about 13 years, and I've been a detective for 7.
I'd like to turn back to the specialized training you mentioned. Can you please elaborate on that?
Yes, I have a cell phone technology and forensic data recovery certification from the American Academy of Law Enforcement. To get this certification, I completed a 3-day training course and a certification exam.
And what did you learn in this course?
I learned about the different types of cell detail records and how to obtain them, how to obtain and interpret cell tower data, and how to obtain and interpret cell phone forensic data.
And in how many cases have you used this certification?
I've used the certification in over 50 cases.
And what is your relation to the case today?
In March of 2020, I was assigned to investigate the death of Mackenzie Brackman.
Your Honor, I'd now like to move to admit Detective Markowitz as an expert in homicide investigation, as well as cell phone technology and forensic data recovery.
Any objection or voir dire?
I have no objection or voir dire, Your Honor.
Thank you. The witness will be admitted and they offer opinions on those subjects. You may continue.
I apologize. I'm in a room with automatic lights. I need to stand up and turn them back off.
Jog around the room for a moment without hitting anything and see if we get the lights back on.
I do apologize.
Maybe throw your hand in the air now and then just to keep the lights on. Go ahead, you may proceed with.
I do apologize. I will proceed.
That's okay, continue.
I'd now like to turn to the movements of Avery Becker on the day of the murder. What steps did you take to track Avery Becker's whereabouts on March 6th?
I obtained a search warrant for Becker's phone, which I was unable to search, and I obtained a court order to obtain cell detail records for Becker's phone on March 6th.
And why were you unable to search Becker's phone directly?
When I contacted Avery Becker's lawyer, she claimed that the phone had been lost on March 5th.
You mentioned that you obtained cell detail records from Becker's phone. Can you please provide a little bit of background on how these work?
Yes, so even when a phone is not in use, it's always reaching out to find a cell tower to connect to. But the service provider doesn't record all of this. Instead, they record a few important moments, such as when a call is placed or a text is made. And the most important detail recorded is the cell tower with which the phone is communicating.
And how do these cell phones determine which cell tower they connect with?
So there's a complex algorithm to determine which cell tower is best to connect with, but it's almost always the closest cell tower to the phone.
Are there ever instances when the cell phone does not connect to the closest tower?
Rarely, for example, if an area was very busy, but it's almost always the closest tower that is connected.
What did the cell detail records from March 6th obtained from Ms. Becker's phone show?
There was another phone placing texts and calls to Avery's phone. I later found out that another student named Taylor Perkins was sending these texts and calls.
And what else did you observe about the call detail records?
All activity from the phone ended on March 6th, meaning the phone was either turned off or destroyed.
Thank you. I'd now like to turn your attention to what has been previously marked as Exhibit 16. Do you have this exhibit in front of you?
Yes, I do.
Do you recognize this exhibit?
Yes, this is a diagram I made summarizing the cell detail records I obtained from Avery Becker's phone.
And is this a fair and accurate representation of the diagram that you made?
Yes, it is.
Your Honor, I'd now like to move to admit Exhibit 16 into evidence.
Objection or voir dire?
I have no objections, Your Honor.
Thank you. 16 is admitted and may be published.
Thank you. Can you please describe what is shown by this diagram?
Yes. So at 12:47, Becker received a text from Perkins that is consistent with Becker's phone being in the range of the cell tower that covers their house. Then at 12:55, Becker received another text from Perkins consistent with, and when the communication was consistent with Becker's phone traveling along Rock Creek Parkway.
And can you please explain what exactly the dotted line shows?
The dotted line shows the most likely route that the phone took on March 6th based on these cell detail records.
Now, before we heard testimony from Alex Dufuentes about a text conversation with Avery Becker, I'd now like to turn your attention to what has been previously admitted as Exhibit 16. May my co-counsel please share this exhibit to the screen?
Please.
How did you obtain these text messages?
I spoke with a student named Alex Dufuentes who said that another student had texted her about plans to break into Brackman's house and trash it. I found out that this other student was Avery Becker.
And what were the contents of these text messages?
Avery Becker sent a text message to Alex saying, "I'm going to wait until he's at work, then break in and trash it," referring to Brackman's house.
And why were you unable to retrieve these texts during your initial interview with Ms. Dufuentes?
Alex had forgotten to bring their phone with them to the initial interview, so I asked her to send screenshots the following day, which she did.
And is Exhibit 14 an accurate copy of those screenshots?
Yes, it is.
I'd now like to talk about what you found at the scene of the crime. What did you observe when you first arrived at the crime scene?
So I responded at approximately 14:20 hours, and when I first arrived, I noticed that the front door was open and that there was a body lying face down just inside the residence. I investigated closer and realized that the body belonged to Mackenzie Brackman. He was lying face down in a pool of blood with a large knife wound in his back, and there was a large knife next to him in a pool of blood.
What did you find when you investigated the rest of the property?
Outside the residence, I noticed that the gate was unlatched and that the back door was open. I entered the residence through the back door and found the house in a state of disarray. There was a broken plate in the kitchen as well as scuff marks, signs of a struggle. In the kitchen, there was also a drawer open filled with large knives and a large knife block on the counter with a large knife missing from it.
What, if anything, did you notice outside of the house?
I noticed that the residence was equipped with a Ring doorbell and had Ring cameras on the south side of the home that covered the gate and the back door.
And did you receive these Ring records?
Yes, I obtained account information and passwords for Brackman's Ring, and I was able to download all the videos captured on March 6th.
I'd like to turn your attention now to what has been previously marked as Exhibit 12. Do you have this exhibit in front of you?
Yes, I do.
Do you recognize this exhibit?
Yes, this is one of the videos that was captured by Brackman's Ring on March 6th.
And is this a fair and accurate representation of the video that you recovered from Brackman's Ring?
Yes, it is.
Your Honor, I'd now like to move to admit Exhibit 12 into evidence.
Objection or voir dire?
I have no objections, Your Honor.
Thank you. 12 is admitted and may be published.
Detective Markowitz, can you please describe what this video shows about what happened on March 6, 2020?
Yes, this video shows that an intruder wearing a mask and hoodie had broken into Mr. Brackman's house on March 6th of 2020.
And what does it show about what occurred on March 6th?
This video shows that Mr. Brackman had interrupted a break into his house. Additionally, the build and height of the person in this video matches that of the defendant today, Avery Becker.
In your expert opinion, based on past homicides you have investigated, what do you believe happened on March 6th?
In my expert opinion, it is fairly obvious that Brackman interrupted a break-in and grabbed a large knife from the kitchen block to defend himself. Then a struggle ensued between the person breaking in and Brackman, and during the course of it, the intruder got control of the knife and stabbed Brackman. Then he ran to the front door where he collapsed, running either away from or after the intruder.
And in your expert opinion, based on all of the evidence you reviewed, who traveled to Mackenzie Brackman's home on March 6, 2020?
In my expert opinion, based on Ring video evidence, text message evidence, cell detail records, and interviews with relevant witnesses, it is absolutely clear that Avery Becker traveled to Mackenzie Brackman's house with the intent to break in and vandalize it and then killed him.
Thank you, Your Honor. I have no further questions at this time.
Thank you. Cross-examination.
You had a 3-day cell phone technology training,
Yes, I did.
and you have been using this training for other cases?
Yes, I have used my cell phone technology certification in many cases.
Would you agree that cell phone technology changes over the course of time?
Yes, it does.
But you've only had this one training?
I have only had one training, but it is the standard training, and I have also
Thank you.
used
You
it.
answered my question. So it could be possible that your training may not have covered updated cell phone technology?
It could be.
Was this the same training that you applied to the case of Mackenzie Brackman's death?
Yes, it was, as well as my experience.
The paramedics arrived on the scene before they called the police.
Yes.
So someone was at the scene of the crime before you?
Yes, there were.
And changes could have been made between the victim dying and you arriving at the scene?
It is possible, but unlikely.
The videos appear to show that Brackman interrupted a random burglary.
Yes, that's what the videos show.
However, Brackman's criminal defense work would have made him a target?
I suppose.
Is it possible that this could have been the work of a disgruntled ex-client?
Yes, it is possible.
An ex-client by the name of Jonathan Rollins?
Yes, that is possible.
And Jonathan Rollins has a child by the name of Blair Rollins,
Yes, he does.
who went to the school where Mackenzie Brackman taught.
Yes.
The first student you interviewed was a mock trial student by the name of Alex Dufuentes,
That's correct.
who provided an exciting piece of evidence where a student was going to trash the victim's house.
Yes, Alex did provide this evidence.
And he got this information over text message.
Yes, the defendant texted him this.
But Cifuentes did not have his phone on him during your interview.
No, Cifuentes had forgotten to bring her
Thank
phone.
you. So Cifuentes sent you what he said are screenshots of the conversation with another student who he claims was going to trash the victim's house.
Yes, I asked Cifuentes to send screenshots because
He claimed that this student was Avery.
Yes, the text messages were from Avery.
The screenshots are a substantial piece of evidence in this case.
Yes, the screenshots are one of many pieces of evidence in this case.
Yet you never examined the Cifuentes' phone?
No, I did not.
Avery Becker lost her phone March 5th, 2020, which was one day before the victim's death.
Avery Becker claims to have lost their phone March 5th, 2020.
When someone is no longer in possession of their phone, would they answer their text messages?
No, that would be impossible.
Would they answer their phone calls?
No,
You examined the call records in this case?
I did.
You saw the text message logs?
Yes,
Taylor Perkins sent out many phone calls to Avery Becker on March 6th, 2020,
yes.
which were never answered.
Yes, I think it would be hard to answer your phone while you were committing a crime.
And Taylor Perkins also sent out many text messages to Avery Becker on March 6th,
Yes.
which were never answered and of short duration.
Yes, once again, I think you would not be
Thank
able
you.
to.
You answered my question. And the phone call stopped at 13:20.
They did.
Did you see any outgoing messages from Avery Becker's phone on March 6th, 2020?
No, there were no outgoing messages.
Did you see any outgoing phone calls from Avery Becker's phone on March 6th, 2020?
No, once again, you would not be able to send phone calls or text messages while committing a
Thank
crime.
you. Detective Markowitz, I am now referring to what has been previously admitted as Exhibit 16 on page 74. You testified about the cell tower records in this case,
I did.
and you understand how cell towers work,
I do.
and you understand that phones sometimes don't link up with the nearest tower.
In rare circumstances.
So cell towers are not necessarily the most accurate.
I suppose. They are still accurate, though.
My apologies. Now I am referring you to previously admitted Exhibit 16 on page 74. Could we please screen share that? What is your relationship with Exhibit 16?
I made this diagram.
You testified that a call at 12:27 p.m. was picked up at Tower 1227-3.
Yes.
This is a tower that is consistent with the phone being at Becker's house.
Yes.
On this exhibit, you included the notation Rollins' house.
Yes, that is where Rollins' house is.
Who lives at Rollins' house?
Blair Rollins.
So the phone being located at Rollins' house would have also been consistent with tower location 1227-3.
Yes.
The call at 12:55 p.m. was picked up at tower 1191-1.
Yes.
Which would be consistent with the path of travel as you claimed it on Rock Creek Parkway.
Rollins has an alternate path that they could also take to get
Thank
to
you. You
Becker's
answered
house
my
that is just as direct.
Thank you. You answered my question already. The phone being on Rock Creek Parkway would also be consistent with the path of travel from Rollins' house to Brackman's house.
One of two paths of travel from Rollins to Brackman's house, actually.
You believe you thoroughly investigated this case.
I did.
You believe you thoroughly processed the screen.
I'm sorry, could you repeat that?
Oh, my apologies. I think I misspoke. You believe you thoroughly processed the scene.
Yes, I did.
And you did not bother to look at Alex Cifuentes' phone at any point in your investigation?
No, I had her send screenshots.
No. Thank you. Nowhere at the scene did you find Avery Becker's fingerprints?
No.
And nowhere at the scene did you find Avery Becker's DNA?
No, but the intruder was wearing gloves in the video.
Thank you. Thank you, Detective Markowitz.
Just answer the question asked. And
Okay.
then the prosecutor wishes to redirect and ask additional information, she may do so. You may continue with your cross-examination.
I'll re-ask my final question. Nowhere at the scene did you find Avery Becker's DNA?
No, however, the intruder in the videos was wearing gloves.
I have no further questions, Your Honor.
Redirect, if any?
Can I get a brief time check?
Sure.
Yes, you have 7 minutes and 14 seconds left.
There you go.
I have no redirect, Your Honor.
Thank you. You may call your next witness, prosecution.
The prosecution calls Ms. Kyle Cusack to the stand.
Witness is already under oath. You may proceed whenever you're ready.
Good evening, Ms. Cusack. Could you start by stating your name and spelling it for the court?
Yes, Kyle Cusack, K-U-Z-A-K.
Thank you. I'd like to start by talking about your career. What do you do for a living?
I am a Colorado Bureau of Investigation certified crime scene reconstruction investigator, also known as a CSR.
Can you turn your, hold on, could you try to turn your volume up just a little bit, Ms. Cusack?
Yes, is that better?
Very good. Go ahead. I apologize. Continue.
Ms. Cusack, where do you work?
I am a civilian employee of the Denver Police Department.
How long have you worked there?
I've spent the last 3 years of my tenure there.
And how long have you been working in crime scene reconstruction?
I have 19 years of experience investigating complex crime scenes.
What kinds of complex crime scenes?
Home invasions, burglaries, homicides, domestic violence, fatal accidents, and armed robberies.
And what is your relation to the case today?
I visited the scene of the homicide and reconstructed the crime. I also reviewed all of the police reports, photographs from the scene, and the 4 Ring security camera videos.
Your Honor, at this time, I move to admit Ms. Kyle Cusack as an expert in crime scene reconstruction and investigation.
Any objection or voir dire?
Yes, Your Honor, I do have some voir dire.
Go ahead.
Ms. Cusack, are you a certified police officer?
I am not.
So you are only a civilian employee of the police department, yes?
I'm a certified crime scene reconstruction investigator.
Have you had any official police training?
I have not, no.
So you didn't go to the police academy and you did not learn about the specific procedures that go into investigation?
No, I am not a police officer.
You have a tenure with the police department, yeah?
That is correct.
And you are accepted as a civilian employee, possibly because of this tenure, yes?
My role is a civilian employee and a CSR for the DPD. That's correct.
Not being an official police officer, you do not have the same access to the crime scene and official databases as a regular police officer would have.
That's correct.
And you arrived at the crime scene after it was processed?
Yes, it was processed by other members of the crime lab before I arrived.
Thank you. Your Honor, Ms. Cusack has had no official police training. She is considered a civilian employee on a tenure and does not have the same access to resources and databases compared to an official police officer and investigator, and is therefore not qualified to speak about the topics they are endorsed for. I object to the designation of this witness as an expert.
Thank you. Rule 702 of the Colorado Rules of Evidence do allow anyone with special knowledge, skill, education, training, or experience to offer opinions in the fields of their expertise. Court finds that the objection really goes to the weight of the evidence, not the admissibility of it. Ultimately, the jury will determine what weight to give all of the evidence presented in the trial. The objection is overruled, and you may continue with your examination.
Thank you, Your Honor. Ms. Cusack, I'd like to talk to you about your investigative process. How do you approach your CSR work?
I approach it in 5 parts. First is recognition and documentation, then collection of evidence, evaluation of evidence, hypothesis and testing, and finally, reconstruction.
And how did you apply your 5-step process in this case?
I used a witness tracking spreadsheet to summarize information from witnesses and suspects. I also used a physical evidence tracking sheet to identify, document, and describe observations about the evidence.
What did you do next?
Next, I expanded the organizational framework of that evidence in order to document my analysis. This included cross-referencing items of evidence with information and images.
What kinds of images?
Photographs from the scene showed blood droplets between the kitchen and the front door, along with blood cast off on the floor and ceiling near the front door. This revealed a clear chronology indicating that the victim was stabbed near the kitchen, then proceeded to the front door and removed the knife there.
So what happened to these photographs?
It is my understanding that the digital files were partially corrupted and that the photographs of the blood droplets and cast off were unrecoverable.
When did that occur?
Well, after the time I'd reviewed the photographs, I had no trouble accessing them for my analysis.
Now let's talk about the crime scene. What evidence did you find of a struggle?
I observed scuff marks on the kitchen floor and a broken plate.
Where did you observe the scuff marks?
On the kitchen floor near the back door.
And where did the intruder break into Mr. Brockman's house from?
Through the back door, which is where I noticed those marks.
And where did you find the broken plate?
About 5 feet from the back door.
I'd now like to direct your attention to what has been previously marked as Exhibits 9 and 18. Do you have a copy of those in front of you?
Yes, I do.
What are they?
Exhibit 9 is a photograph of the broken plate I observed at the scene, and Exhibit 18 is a photograph of the scuff marks I observed on the kitchen floor.
And are Exhibits 9 and 18 fair and accurate depictions of the scuff marks and the broken plate?
Yes, they are.
Your Honor, at this time I move to admit Exhibits 9 and 18 into evidence.
Any objection or voir dire?
No objection, Your Honor.
Thank you. 9 and 18 are admitted and may be published if you wish.
Thank you. Ms. Cusack, what do these scuff marks suggest?
These marks suggest that there was a struggle of at least 2 individuals engaged in close contact near the back door.
And what does the broken plate suggest to you?
The plate suggests that that struggle moved from the back door to the kitchen, which is where the plate was likely knocked to the ground as the 2 individuals were struggling.
What other pieces of evidence did you notice in the kitchen?
I also observed an open knife drawer.
And what did you notice about the knife drawer?
The fact that it was open caught my attention. There was an array of different types of knives inside of it. The victim likely opened the drawer to search for a defensive weapon.
Now let's turn our attention to the murder weapon. Where was it recovered?
Just inside the front door.
And what is this position consistent with?
This is consistent with the victim having been stabbed near the kitchen, then proceeding to the front door and removing the knife there.
Now, we've discussed a lot of pieces of evidence. What did all this evidence lead you to conclude?
The evidence shows that the victim was alerted to the intruder's presence by the ring security system, then went to the kitchen to retrieve a knife to use for self-defense. The victim then confronted the intruder and the 2 began to struggle. That struggle moved from the back door to the kitchen where the plate was knocked to the ground. At some point, the intruder disarmed the victim, obtained the knife, and proceeded to stab the victim.
Now, let's talk about how your conclusions differ from that of the defense. What conclusions did they draw?
The investigator for the defense, Blake Van Owen, suggests that the intruder snuck up behind the victim and stabbed him while he was seated at the kitchen table.
What's your opinion of that idea?
I disagree with it strongly. This would have required the victim to have been surprised by the intruder.
And why do you think that's an unlikely scenario?
First, the intruder would have been the victim would have been informed of the intruder's presence by the ring security footage before the intruder even entered the home. Second, the victim would have heard the back door slide open and the intruder walk across the kitchen. And third, for Blake Van Owen's theory to be correct, the intruder would have been holding the knife backwards, which is highly unusual.
And what else does this theory fail to consider?
Van Owen's theory doesn't explain the scuff marks on the floor, the broken plate, or the open knife drawer.
How do you know Blake Van Owen?
I've seen him at CSR conferences. They were a police officer for a short time, but they were never a CSR.
And then how is his work connected to yours?
Van Owen simply reviews the work of actual CSRs, mostly by reading our reports and trying to find ways to reinterpret the evidence we discuss.
How accurate is this process?
Reading a report will never provide a person with the same degree of understanding as physically being at the scene of the crime and evaluating the evidence.
And in your expert opinion, what do you draw about the circumstances of Mr. Brackman's death?
This was clearly a planned burglary gone wrong. The intruder had knowledge of the victim's property and chose a time of day that would have normally placed the victim outside of the home. However, the victim was home at the time and was killed by the intruder.
Thank you, Your Honor. I have no further questions at this time.
You cross-examination.
The defense would like to do a cross. Ms. Kuzak, when you arrived at the crime scene, did you observe a dead body?
Yes, I did.
Was this dead body Mackenzie Brackman's body?
Yes, it was.
And this body was dead, yes?
Yes, it was.
And you are a crime scene investigator, yes?
That's correct.
I am now going to refer you to what has been labeled as Exhibits 1 and 4 on pages 58 and 61. Do you need these shared before you?
Yes, that would be good. Thank you.
Okay. I will see if our exhibits keeper would like to share those. This is Exhibit 1. Do you recognize it?
Yes, I do.
What is it?
This is a photograph of the victim, Mackenzie Brackman, in his home.
If we could look at Exhibit 4, please. Do you recognize this photo?
Yes, I do.
What is it?
Again, this is a photograph of the victim at his home after the crime took place.
Is Exhibits 1 and 4 both true and accurate representations of the position that you observed Mr. Brackman's dead body?
Yes, they are.
Your Honor, I move to admit Exhibits 1 and 4 into evidence.
Any objection or voir dire?
Objection, Your Honor.
1 and 4 are admitted. You may continue.
Your Honor, I move to publish Exhibits 1 and 4.
You may do so.
Thank you. Ms. Kuzak, you arrived at the homicide after the homicide occurred. You arrived at the scene of the crime after it was processed by the crime lab, yes?
Yes, that's correct.
So you can't ensure that the evidence was in its original state when you observed this evidence?
The members of the crime lab are trained professionals, so I don't believe that they would tamper with the scene of a crime.
The digital files of the photographs of the blood droplets of the crime scene became corrupted at one point, effectively deleting those pieces of evidence, yes?
Yes, that's correct.
This happened after your review of these pieces of evidence, correct?
Yes.
So you were able to fully observe key pieces of evidence, and then it became corrupt for others not to observe.
Yes, that's unfortunately true.
So no one can verify your findings based off of these pieces of evidence.
Detective Markowitz also viewed the photos of the blood cast off and blood spatter, and I also saw those things when I visited the scene of the crime.
Okay. Was there any DNA evidence at the scene of the crime?
No, there was not.
Was there any identifiable physical evidence at the scene of the crime?
Yes, there were the scuff marks, the open knife drawer, and the broken plate that I observed.
Was there any physical evidence, such as DNA, at the crime scene to tie this murder to one specific perpetrator?
As seen from the Ring security camera videos, the intruder was wearing gloves, so there was no DNA found at the scene.
Ms. Kuzak, were you able to place all of the evidence from the crime scene as a straightforward home invasion gone wrong?
Unfortunately, I was not able to place all evidence, no.
No more questions, Your Honor. Thank you.
You, any redirect?
Yes, briefly, Your Honor. No, my apologies.
All right, thank you. Does the prosecution have any additional witnesses?
No, Your Honor. This time the prosecution rests.
Thank you. Does the defense wish to call any witnesses?
The defense likes to call Avery Becker to the stand.
Thank you. The witness is already under oath. You may proceed whenever you're ready.
Can you state your name for the record?
Yes, my name is Avery Becker.
What grade were you in last year?
I was a senior at Colorado High School.
Were you a part of any clubs?
Yes, I was part of the mock trial club.
Did you enjoy being in mock trial?
Yeah, I did.
Who was your coach?
Our coach was Mackenzie Brackman.
Did he help improve the team?
Overall, yes, I think the team would not be where it was without him.
The practice after regionals, did Mr. Brackman congratulate you on your awards?
No, he did not. I was a little bit surprised. I was expecting him to at least acknowledge that I had won an award, but instead he did not.
How then did you leave practice?
I was pretty frustrated when I left practice. I ended up leaving practice early because of that.
Where were you located in the room before you left?
I was located by the whiteboard.
Why were you located at this location in the room?
We were intending on, at least I was intending on writing positives and negatives regarding the tournament on the whiteboard.
What was in your hand at this moment?
I was holding a whiteboard marker.
This marker was grabbed from where?
It was grabbed from the whiteboard.
When you officially left practice, what was in your hand?
At the time, I was absolutely certain that it was a whiteboard marker. I later realized that it was, in fact, a permanent marker.
Once you got home, who did you talk to about this incident?
Once I got home, I talked to my mom.
What did you tell your mom?
I told her that Brackman had kicked me off the team and that I was just, I was pretty frustrated about it.
The next day, where did you go?
The next day, I went to Brackman's office. I really, really wanted to apologize.
Did you get the opportunity to apologize to Mr. Brackman?
No, I never didn't get to apologize to him in person. His secretary informed me that he was not there at the time.
Since you couldn't meet with Mr. Brackman, what did you do instead?
Since I couldn't meet with him, I sent him a text message. I really wanted to let him know that I was really sorry for what I had done.
Did you offer anything for Mr. Brackman's car?
Yes, I did. I offered to repaint his car, or pay to repaint his car, and to get a job over the summer to be able to afford it.
Let's fast forward to the day of the murder. On the day of the murder, who were you with?
I was with Taylor Perkins.
Were you with Taylor the whole day?
Yes, I was.
Did you skip school to search?
Yes, we did.
Did you ever find your phone?
No, we did not.
How did you try to track your phone without knowing where it could be?
We tried to track my phone by calling it and texting it from Taylor's phone. And we went to the different places that we had been last night to see if anyone had seen it.
Did you have your phone on March 6th, the day of the murder?
No, I did not.
Where was the last time you remember using your phone?
The last time I remember using my phone was at the Fry Shack on March 5th.
So we're going to go back to the day before the murder when you had your phone at the Fry Shack. Who did you go to the Fry Shack with on this day?
I went to the Fry Shack with Taylor Perkins.
Who goes to the Fry Shack that you know of?
A lot of people from Colorado High School go to the Fry Shack, specifically a lot of people from the mock trial team.
Have you seen the student Alex Dufuentes at the Fry Shack before?
Yes, I did.
Did you see Alex there on the day, March 5th?
Yes, I did.
You and Taylor played games on what device at the Fry Shack?
We played games on our respective phones. I played games on my phone, and I offered to give Alex my phone so that she could play a game as well.
Who was the last person you remember having your phone?
The last person was Alex.
Before leaving the Fry Shack, do you recall having your phone with you?
No, I do not.
One big question is, do you know the student Blair Rawlings?
Yes, I do.
Relevance?
Your Honor, I'm simply stating the relationship between Avery Becker and Blair Rawlings.
I'll allow it. There has been sufficient evidence elicited during the course of this trial to allow that leeway. You can answer the question.
Thank you, Your Honor. Let me ask the question again. Do you know the student named Blair Rawlings?
Yes, I do.
Do you go to the same high school?
Yes, we did.
So you see Blair around school?
Yes.
Would you say Blair and you are the same build?
Yeah, pretty much anyone who was looking at us next to each other would have mistaken us for each other.
Are a lot of people your build?
Blair definitely was.
So if people saw you and Blair walking away, would they be able to tell you apart?
Probably not, especially if they didn't know us.
Does Blair know Mr. Brackman?
Yes, yeah.
How does Blair know him?
Blair's father was represented in a criminal case by Mr. Brackman and ended up being convicted of a license.
Did Blair have any friends from your school that you know of?
Blair was friends with Alex Dufuentes.
Objection, speculation.
We'll have to lay a little foundation that this witness had knowledge of that, counsel.
Alex Dufuentes, the witness?
Yes.
Would you consider you and Alex friends?
No, not at all.
Do you and Alex have similar interests?
In regards to mock trial, yes. We both liked the crosses and the closings.
Why aren't you and Alex friends if you have things in common?
The nature of our interests, our shared interests, kind of pitted us against each other, and it made us more of rivals than it did friends.
Would you say Alex is jealous of you?
Definitely, yeah.
Do you and Alex ever text each other?
No, not at all.
Would you ever ask Alex for help?
No, I have no clue why Alex would ever want to help me.
Alex claimed to have received texts from you about what?
Alex claims to receive texts about me regarding trashing Brackman's house. I did not make these texts.
Just to clarify, you would never, ever text Alex for help?
Not under any circumstance.
No further questions, Your Honor.
Thank you. Cross-examination.
Yes, Your Honor. Good evening, Ms. Becker.
Good evening.
I'd like to begin by talking about your time on the mock trial team, including your relationship with Coach Brackman. You had been on the mock trial team for 4 years, correct?
Yes, that's correct.
And you used mock trial practice to mainly hang out with your friend Taylor Perkins and text each other across the room?
We did do that during practice. I don't know if it was mainly, but we did do that.
And Brackman was often frustrated with you because of this?
Yes.
But you believed that Brackman was just hard on you because he was jealous of your abilities as an attorney?
Yes, you could say that. We had very different styles, and mine tended to be more successful for me.
Exactly. And because of these different styles, you two argued frequently during practice.
Yes, we did.
I'd like to move on to talk about why you were kicked off the mock trial team. About a month before the regional tournament, Brackman got mad because you came to practice unprepared again.
Yes, that is true.
So he moved you to the B team.
Yes, that is correct.
And you got your friend Taylor to quit so that Brackman would put you back on the A team.
Well, I did not get Taylor to quit. Taylor quit on his own volition. He quit because he wanted to.
But Taylor did quit so that you would be put back on the A team.
He did quit, but not so that I would be put back on the A team.
But once he quit, you were put back on the A team, correct?
In the end, yes.
And after regionals, when Coach Brackman attempted to give you feedback on your performance, you refused to listen to him and you stormed out of practice.
Well, I wouldn't call what he tried to give me feedback. He told me that I didn't deserve the awards that I had gotten, and he told me that the mock trial team would be better off without me, essentially. So I wouldn't call what he gave me feedback.
But you did refuse to listen and storm out of practice.
I did storm out of practice, yes.
And you took a permanent marker, a Sharpie, and wrote the words "Worst Attorney Award" on the hood of Coach Brackman's Porsche.
I wrote those words. At the time, I was absolutely certain that it was a whiteboard marker. I thought that it was going to wipe right off.
But it wasn't a whiteboard marker, was it? It was a Sharpie.
In the end, it was a Sharpie, but I had absolutely no clue at the time.
So after he saw this, Coach Brackman kicked you off the team for good.
Yes, that is true.
And that devastated you.
You could say that. I was pretty distraught.
I am using your words when I say that devastated you.
Okay, then yes.
Let's talk about your whereabouts on the day that Coach Brackman was murdered. The last place you claim to have seen your phone was at the Fry Shack the day before the murder?
That is correct.
So your story is that after the Fry Shack, you never once tried to use your phone to play games, text your friend, or use social media until the very next morning on March 6th when you realized it was gone?
Yeah, that's true. I mean, I had been kicked off the mock trial team just before, and so I was in a funk.
So
I wasn't thinking straight. Yes, that is yes. Yeah.
You claim that Alex Dufuentes was probably the one that stole your phone?
Yes, I do.
But you have no proof that Alex stole your phone?
I mean, I have no hard proof, but Alex was the last one to have my phone.
And you also claim that you were with Taylor Perkins on March 6th.
Yes, I was the whole day.
And the two of you went to public places like the mall and the Fry Shack on March 6th?
Yes, that's true.
But there is no one else here today to testify that they saw you except your best friend, Taylor Perkins?
Well, there's no one here to testify that they didn't see me either.
But that's a no. No one else is here to corroborate your claims except for your best friend?
Not in this courtroom.
You have also claimed that Alex was possibly conspiring with Blair Rollins to set you up.
Yes, that I do believe that.
But again, you have absolutely no proof of this alleged conspiracy?
I have no.
Finally, you claim that you sent texts, that you did not send the texts that Alex presented earlier today. But you did tell your mother that you would get back at Brackman, even if it was the last thing you did.
Yes, I did say that. I was not thinking straight at the time, but the next day I cleared my head and I did not feel that same way.
So that's a yes.
Yes.
Thank you, Your Honor. I have no further questions at this time.
Thank you. Redirect exam, if any.
Before I continue, may I have the time that is left?
Certainly. Time check.
17 minutes, 59 seconds. Oh.
You.
Yes, I agree with that.
Redirect exam.
No redirect, Your Honor.
Thank you. Defense may call your next witness.
The defense would like to call Taylor Perkins to the stand, Your Honor.
Thank you. The witness is already under oath. You may proceed whenever you're ready.
Please identify yourself for the record.
My name is Taylor Perkins.
Please tell the court about yourself, Taylor.
Yes, certainly. I went to Colorado High School at the time of the murder. You know, I was on the mock trial team, and currently I'm a freshman at CU Boulder.
Do you know the defendant?
I do.
What is your relationship with the defendant?
You know, me and Avery we're pretty close friends.
Okay, let's jump to the day before the murder. On March 5th, Thursday after school, did you and Avery do anything together?
Yeah, we ended up going to the Fry Shack that day.
Who else was at the Fry Shack at this time?
The mock trial team was currently at the Fry Shack.
Did you speak with anyone notable while here?
I did. I spoke to Alex.
After speaking with Alex, where did Avery go?
She was flustered, so she kind of went to the bathroom and she left her phone.
Where did you observe Avery's phone after she left through the bathroom?
So she left it on the table. was the last place I saw it.
Once Avery came out of the bathroom, what did you two do?
You know, we were both kind of done with that situation, so we left.
Where did you two go after leaving?
We ended up going to the mall.
The next morning, the day of the murder, did you go to school?
I did not.
Why not?
Well, I was planning on going to school, and then I was hoping to carpool with Avery to school, but she wasn't answering, and found out that she lost her phone.
What did you and Avery decide to do after discovering her phone is missing?
So we kind of decided to retrace our steps and try to look for her phone.
Let's walk through this day. Once you met up with Avery, where did you two first look?
So first we went to the mall to try to retrace our steps from the night prior.
Did you find Avery's phone at the mall?
Unfortunately, we didn't. We kind of looked everywhere, but weren't able to find it.
After you searched the mall, where else did you look?
So retracing our steps again, we ended up going back to the Fry Shack.
Why did you go back to the Fry Shack?
We kind of thought that maybe one of the employees would have found it, and that we would have found it then.
After this exhaustive search, were you able to find the phone?
Unfortunately, we weren't. It's still lost.
Once you arrived back at the Fry Shack, who else appeared?
So the entire mock trial team was at the Fry Shack, which kind of was surprising.
Why was this surprising?
You know, the mock trial team was there, and they were supposed to be at practice.
What did the mock trial team tell you about why they were at the Fry Shack?
So they kind of told us that Brackman wasn't there.
No more questions at this time, Your Honor. Thank you.
All right, thank you. Cross-examination.
Yes, Your Honor. Good evening, Mr. Perkins.
Good evening.
Let's start with your relationship with Avery Becker. Avery Becker was your best friend,
Yeah, we were pretty close.
and the only reason that you joined the mock trial team was because your friend did.
Yeah.
You and Avery thought that Brackman was a mediocre coach, yes?
I mean, he did his best.
You described Avery's behavior as rash,
Yeah.
and you thought that she had an inflated ego.
You know, from time to time.
But you were still good friends despite this.
Yes.
So much so that a week before the mock trial regionals, you quit the team in support of Avery.
Yeah. You know, I don't even really like mock trial too much, and it's not my passion. And I know Avery really, really loves mock trial, and you know, she would have done the same for me.
So that was a yes, you did quit the team.
Yes, ma'am.
Let's talk about what you did once Avery was kicked off the team. You know that Avery was really upset and distraught after being kicked off the team,
Yeah.
but you weren't at the practice where Avery vandalized Mr. Brackman's car.
I was not.
You talked to Avery after the practice,
I did.
but you didn't see any of what Avery said or did while in that emotional state.
Yeah, but you know, I kind of believe what she said.
So that is a no, you didn't see any of what Avery said or did.
I did not.
Now, are you aware that Avery has denied ever texting Alex Dufuentes for help getting back on the team?
Objection, Your Honor, beyond the scope.
Allow a little exploration into what this witness's knowledge is, but do not guess or speculate. Only answer if you know the answer. You need the question restated?
No, Your Honor. I do not believe so.
All right, but you did say in your statement that Avery did text everyone on the team, including Alex Dufuentes.
I did.
After Avery was kicked off the team, you went to the Fry Shack,
That is correct.
where you then claim Avery lost her phone.
Yes.
But you also say that her phone was like a third kidney and it was never out of reach.
That is true. But she was kind of mad at Alex and didn't really want to be in that situation and just got up and left.
So your story is that your best friend, who you texted with all the time and played games with you on her phone, didn't notice that her phone was missing until a day later.
Yes, but she was kind of flustered.
And you were the one who pointed out that the phone was missing, not Avery.
I believe so.
So we only have your word and the word of your best friend that the phone was lost at all.
I guess you could say that.
I'd like to talk about your whereabouts on the day of the murder. You say you and Avery were together for the entire day looking for Avery's phone,
That is correct.
but you have no one who can support your story other than Avery?
I would say so, but we were just looking for her phone.
And you had technology available to you, like the Find My Phone feature that you could have used to find the missing phone?
Well, I have an Android, and I wasn't really thinking like that, and I forgot that Apple has that whole iCloud system, so I was I didn't realize that at the time.
But you did have the technology available.
We did. I just didn't realize it.
You didn't use it.
We did not.
And you and Avery discussed the murder of Mr. Brackman after the news broke.
Yeah, because it was surprising.
And this was before Avery's lawyers contacted you about being a witness.
I believe so.
Finally, I'd like to talk about the defense's notion that Blair Rollins was somehow involved in this case. You claim that Blair Rollins, another student, might have committed the murder?
I do. I mean, he would be the top priority, I would say.
But you have no evidence or witnesses to support this theory.
I know he wasn't at school that day.
No evidence or witnesses.
I would say no.
And the defendant, Avery Becker, was the one who suggested this theory to you.
I kind of believe so, but I would say so too.
You say that Alex Fuentes was good friends with Rollins?
That is correct.
And lastly, when Avery was in trouble before, you quit the team to help Avery.
That is correct. It was her last chance to win a trophy, and I don't really like mock trial at all, and she would have done the same for me.
And now you are the only person who claims to have seen Avery during the time of the murder.
That is correct.
Thank you, Your Honor. I have no further questions.
Thank you. Redirect exam, if any.
Yes, Your Honor. We would like to conduct a redirect.
Go ahead.
Taylor, on the day of the murder, where were you?
Excuse me. On the day of the murder, I was with Avery the whole day, and we went to the mall and to the fry shack and tried to find her phone.
Throughout the entire day, Avery was with you the entire time, yes?
That is correct. Avery and I were side by side the whole day.
Where was the last place you saw Avery's phone?
So last place
Objection, asked and answered.
Overruled. I'll allow the witness to answer the question.
So last place I saw her phone was on the night before in the fry shack on the table next to Alex.
And who was with you when you last saw this phone besides Avery?
Alex Dufuentes.
And who do you know as friends with Alex?
Blair Rollins.
Thank you, Your Honor. No more questions.
Thank you. Defense may call your next witness.
Your Honor, the defense would like to call Blake Van Owen to the witness stand.
Thank you. The witness is already under oath, so you may proceed whenever you're ready.
Thank you, Your Honor. Could you please introduce yourself to the court?
Yes, my name is Blake Van Owen.
What do you do for a living?
I teach police practices in social justice at the Community College of the Rockies, CU Denver.
What degrees, if any, do you hold?
Criminal justice from Ashford University.
Where did you work before you became a professor?
The Aurora Police Department.
During your time there, did you become familiar with police practices,
Yes.
police policies,
Yes.
and police procedures?
Yes.
What did you learn during your time there?
I discovered a number of police policies and practices that I don't agree with, which is why I ended up leaving the department.
What areas have the courts accepted you as an expert witness?
Police practices, use of force, false arrest, forensic evidence techniques, crime scene reconstruction, cell tower analysis, and general police investigation tactics.
Are these areas pertinent to the present case?
Definitely.
Where have you been accepted as a defense expert?
Well, I've been accepted as a defense expert in district courts in Arizona, Colorado, and Kansas. And state courts in Wyoming, Nebraska, and New Mexico.
How many times have you been accepted as an expert witness in crime scene reconstruction?
8 times.
How many times have you been accepted as an expert witness in cell tower analysis?
5 times.
How many times have you been accepted as an expert witness in general police investigation tactics?
12 times.
How many cases have you been consulted on regarding these and other topics?
Over 100.
Your Honor, I would like to ask the court to designate Blake Van Owen as an expert in crime scene reconstruction, cell tower analysis, and general police practice in pursuit to Rule 702 of Colorado Rules of Evidence.
Any objection or voir dire?
Yes, Your Honor. The prosecution would like to voir dire the witness.
You may, go ahead.
Professor, you were only in law enforcement for less than a year,
Yes, 9 months.
so you didn't spend really that much time observing police practices.
One might say that it was a short amount of time, but I believe that it was an adequate amount of time to learn all of their practices, policies, procedures, and everything.
And after that, you worked as a school resource officer,
Yes.
then as a security guard.
Yeah.
But neither of those occupations gave you direct expertise in police practices.
No, but my former employment at the Aurora Police Department did.
And you have no formal training in cell phone analysis.
No formal training, but I have done extensive research on my own for cases similar to this one, and I believe that I have an above average and very high knowledge of these areas.
You have no training in crime scene reconstruction.
Again, no, but I've done research on my own.
And you have no specialized skill in any of these areas.
No official specialized skill, but I definitely have skill and more knowledge than the average person in these areas.
Your Honor, the prosecution objects to this witness being admitted as an expert on the grounds that they lack the qualifications in order to testify as an expert.
Court finds that the objection goes more to the weight of the evidence rather than the admissibility. Court finds the background of the witness sufficient past the special knowledge, skill, education, training, or experience under Rule 702. You may continue with your examination then. Go ahead.
Thank you, Your Honor. What have you reviewed as a part of your work in this case?
I've reviewed the police reports. I've reviewed the crime scene reconstruction prepared by the prosecution. I've reviewed the cell tower reports and pretty much everything else, including the ring videos and the call detail records.
How does your conclusion differ from CSI Kuzak and Detective Markowitz's?
Well, I took into account many areas that they neglected, and that has made me come to the conclusion that their investigation was very rushed.
Why do you believe it was rushed?
Well, they missed a lot of important details, and they came to a lot of unconfirmed conclusions.
Did you review the cell phone records in this case?
Yes, I did.
Can you please describe how cell phones interact with cell towers?
So, a cell phone will attempt to connect to the cell tower that gives it the best signal, but this isn't always the one that it's closest to. So you could be standing right next to a cell tower, but your phone could decide to connect to one that's miles away if it sees that its connection would be better. And cell phones can also connect to and generate multiple different calls at one time.
What concrete knowledge do we have about Avery's phone location?
Well, we know that the phone had communicated with a cell tower in Brackman's house's area. And if we were to kind of use this knowledge to paint a trail, it would show that the phone went up by the cell tower that covers Avery's house and down to the one that covers Brackman's house.
Can call detail records act like a GPS?
No, they cannot. They don't show specific locations.
Are cell towers accurate?
Not at all, because one, again, they can connect to ones in different areas, and two, they show a very wide area, so it's impossible to pinpoint a specific location.
Do you know where Avery's phone was before the murder?
No, Detective Markowitz only got the cell tower records for a limited window of time.
After leaving the Fry Shack on the evening of March 5th, 2020, where did Avery's phone go?
We don't know, and this is because Markowitz never attempted to get these records.
Who was Avery with at the time of the murder?
Taylor Perkins, whose cell tower information was not reviewed by Markowitz.
What did the cell tower logs relating to Taylor's phone show?
They show calls and texts relating to Taylor's phone relayed from antennae 2 and 3. These calls were very short and received no response.
Were the text messages Avery received from Taylor responded to?
No.
Based on your examination of all the cell tower data in this case, can you tell who had Avery Becker's phone the day of the murder?
No, I cannot.
Did you have a chance to look at the alleged screenshots of the text they claim came from Dufuentes' phone?
No. Yes, I did. Sorry.
How is Detective Markowitz's method of examining the screenshots of the text conversation between Alex and Avery faulty?
Well, rather than examining the actual phone, Markowitz decided that it would be acceptable to go with screenshots. And this is a problem because screenshots could easily be faked or doctored. So we have no idea if this text message exchange actually happened.
How do the police access the contents of a phone?
Well, the police can access the contents of a phone using mobile forensic softwares. I know that the Denver police uses a program called Cellbrite. And so this just effectively allows them to just immediately download the contents of any phone, including text messages.
Do you know anyone else with the motive to kill Mackenzie Brackman?
The daughter of one of Brackman's former clients.
And what was the daughter's name?
The daughter's name was Blair Rollins, and her father's name was Jonathan Rollins.
Why would Blair Rollins have a motive?
Well, her father, Jonathan Rollins, had been charged with murder and had Mackenzie Brackman as an attorney, but was ultimately sentenced to life in prison.
Mr. Blake Van Ohms, I'm now referring you to what has been marked as Exhibit 22 on page 89. What is Exhibit 22?
Exhibit 22 is a chilling audio recording of the court proceedings during Jonathan Rollins' case.
Do you recognize Exhibit 22?
Yes, I do.
How do you recognize it?
I recognize it because I have listened to the recording.
Is Exhibit 22 a true and accurate representation of the language Jonathan Rollins used towards Mackenzie Brackman?
Yes.
Your Honor, I would like to move to admit Exhibit 22 into evidence.
Any objection or voir dire?
Yes, Your Honor. I object to hearsay.
Your Honor, may we constructively approach?
Yes.
Your Honor, the statement as recorded is the defendant, Mr. Rollins, yelling at Mackenzie Brackman immediately following his conviction. Your Honor, the people believe this statement is permissible to the following exception. Excited utterance. Mr. Rollins was convicted of murder and sent to the prison and the declarant's then existing mental and emotional state. In addition, the people believe this statement is permissible to the then existing mental and emotional state. The declarant had a plan to get back and kill Mr. Brackman. In addition, according to Rule 703, experts can rely on hearsay in formulating this expert opinions. This expert is going to opine, has opined, and isn't opining because the investigation in this case.
Brief response?
No, Your Honor.
Although I think it's tangentially related, it's part of the defense of an alternate suspect. I will allow the audio to be played, but the jury will determine what weight, if any, to give it at the conclusion of all the evidence. You may publish the audio.
Thank you, Your Honor. Could we please play Exhibit 22?
I'll get you back, Brackman, if it's the last thing I do.
Can you identify the voice in the audio recording?
That is Jonathan Rollins.
At what point in the proceedings did Jonathan Rollins make this statement?
This was after Jonathan Rollins received his life sentence.
Have you listened to other parts of the audio recording that are not in Exhibit 22?
Yes, I have.
And what was going on in that part of the recording?
That part of the recording has Blair Rollins testifying on their father, Jonathan Rollins' behalf, which is important because it demonstrates that Blair was present at the case, which means that she heard her father threaten Brackman.
Was Blair Rollins at school the day of the murder?
No, she was not.
How do you know this?
I've done an extensive search on Rollins using investigative methods and online resources and still not have been able to locate him.
Do you know of anyone else who has searched for Blair Rollins?
No, which includes the prosecution who failed to investigate and look into this obvious alternate suspect.
I apologize for interrupting, but it appears that we have lost Judge Butler, as Miss Soul said in the chat when she suggested that maybe we pause for a moment, but I'm not
Oh,
sure.
no. I'm so sorry. I didn't notice that. We can definitely pause.
I'm going to jump on the phone real quick with the Boulder Bar Association to see if we can figure out what's going on, all right?
Timekeepers, I hope you noted where we were in your timekeeping when we stopped. So you've got you've got that noted.
Yes.
Yes, thank you.
I think I'm back.
Yep, I got you.
Thanks, Lila. Sorry, guys. Somehow I had another issue with my connection. All right, my apologies. If you guys remember where you are, we can take right back up. All of a sudden, everybody froze on me, but apparently you didn't freeze on each other, which is good. All right, let's continue.
Your Honor, if it's okay, I'm just gonna go back a little bit because I'm not 100% sure where you left.
That's fine.
Okay, hold on.
Stupid technology. That's what old people say. Go ahead.
At what point in the court proceedings did Jonathan Rollins make this statement?
Jonathan Rollins made this statement after receiving his life sentence in prison.
Have you listened to other parts of the audio recording that are not in Exhibit 22?
Yes, I have.
And what was going on in that part of the recording?
In that part of the recording, Blair Rollins was just testifying on her father's behalf.
Was Blair? Sorry, continue.
And this is important because it shows us that Blair was present during the court proceedings, which means that she heard her father yell at Brackman and threatening him.
Was Blair Rollins at school the day of the murder?
No, she disappeared after graduation.
How do you know this?
I've done an extensive search on Rollins, and I've been using investigative methods and online resources, and I still have not been able to locate her.
Do you know of anyone else who has searched for Blair Rollins?
No, I am the only person, and the prosecution failed to search and try and investigate this pretty obvious alternate suspect.
I have no further questions, Your Honor.
Thank you. Cross-examination.
Yes, Your Honor. Good evening, Professor. I'd like to start by talking about your history of testifying in court. In your entire career, you've only ever testified for the defense.
Yes, this is correct. That is not a choice by me, however. This is because what I do for the defense is what the police do for the prosecution for free. So even if I wanted to, there would be no need for the prosecution to hire me for my services.
And you even like to think of yourself as a check on the power of the police.
Yes, like I mentioned earlier, there was that moment when I realized there were a lot of police policies and procedures that I don't agree with. So I like to kind of make sure that any wrongs done by the police are corrected.
Now let's talk about your analysis of the crime. You didn't do a full investigation into this case.
I did a pretty extensive investigation.
But in your words, it was a partial investigation.
Yes.
And you never visited the scene of the crime.
No, I did not visit the scene of the crime.
You assume that Detective Markowitz influenced some of Ms. Kuzak's findings.
Yes, Kuzak could have easily mentioned Avery because at first glance, she does seem like one of the obvious suspects. However, this kind of put into his mind that it had to be Avery and singled out evidence that linked the murder to Avery and neglected any evidence that contradicted it.
So that's a yes, you assumed that.
Yes.
And you also assume that Detective Markowitz is the one who planted the idea in Ms. Kuzak's mind of Avery Becker's assessment.
Objection, Your Honor. This is beyond the scope. Mr. Van Owen did not testify about the relationship between Detective Markowitz and CSI Kuzak's findings in his direct examination.
Response?
Your Honor, this is in the witness's affidavit, and they do mention this directly. It's not outside the scope of anything.
Well, being outside of an affidavit as opposed to the direct examination are two separate things, but I will allow a little bit of leeway. You may ask your question.
Would you like me to repeat the question?
Yes, please.
You also assumed that Detective Markowitz is the one who planted the idea of Avery Becker as a suspect in Ms. Kuzak's mind.
Yes.
But isn't it your own belief that one should never assume?
I did testify many times that many unconfirmed conclusions and assumptions were made. However, those were on a much larger scale than somebody putting an idea in someone else's mind. This was, assuming that somebody committed a murder.
So let's say yes, it's your belief that one should never assume.
Yes, in some cases.
All right, let's talk about the evidence that was at the crime scene. It's your belief that there was no evidence of a struggle at the crime scene besides the scuff marks.
Yes, and I believe that the scuff marks do not indicate a struggle because we have no idea when they were made.
But there was also a broken plate found at the crime scene.
Yes, this is true.
You don't address the broken plate.
I do not address the broken plate.
You don't address the open knife drawer.
I do not address the open knife drawer.
And you're not a certified crime scene reconstruction investigator.
I'm not a certified crime scene reconstruction investigator. However, I feel like many of the things that I found were very obvious and could have been picked out by almost anybody.
Isn't it one of your theories that whoever came to Mr. Brackman's house came with the intent to kill him?
Yes, I do believe this.
But in the ring videos, the assailant is clearly not holding a knife.
We see no visible knife. However, they were wearing multiple layers of clothing, as we could see, so it could have easily been concealed.
So it's a no.
Yes, that would be a no.
I'd like to talk about the cell phone records. In rural areas, a single cell tower might cover 100 square miles.
Yes.
But Avery Becker lives in an urban area where cell towers are more closely packed together.
Yes, and in these busy areas, cell towers could be very busy at a time, which even more supports the idea that cell towers can be inaccurate and will not always connect to the one that is the closest. It is the one that will provide the best signal.
But just because a phone has the ability to connect to multiple cell towers, that doesn't mean it's going to happen.
Yes, but I mean, it's a pretty decent possibility.
You claim that the call detail records pertaining to Taylor Perkins' phone are consistent with Taylor and Avery being at the mall during the time of the murder.
Yes.
But you dispute the accuracy of the call detail records as they relate to Avery Becker's phone.
Yes, I do. However, I dispute the accuracy of the call detail records for Avery's phone. I dispute them because we don't know the accuracy of location. However, we do know that the length of the phone calls that happened, so I believe that those parts are accurate.
So you can't seem to make up your mind whether or not these records are accurate.
No, there are two different scenarios. One is pertaining to location and one is pertaining to the length of calls. I know that the location can be inaccurate, but I know that the length of calls can be very accurate.
So it's a no.
Yes, but with the added information.
Thank you. Finally, I'd like to talk to you about your compensation for being here today. You expect that your testimony today will make you at least $1,000.
Objection, Your Honor. I don't understand the relevance of talking about how much money Mr. Van Owen could possibly receive from being here.
Motive, bias, or prejudice can always be explored of a witness. The objection's overruled. You may answer the question.
Would you like me to restate that?
Yes, please.
You expect that your testimony today will make you at least $1,000.
Yes.
And that's in addition to the just under $7,000 that you've already made from consulting on this case.
Yes, and that's because I'm doing my job, which is how you make money.
And you suspect that Blair Rollins could have committed this murder.
Yes.
And that's because Blair was supposedly present at her father's sentencing.
Yes.
But you didn't request a copy of that part of the recording where Blair speaks on behalf of her father.
No, I did not.
So you have no way of knowing if Blair Rollins was even in the room when her father was sentenced.
Well, I mean, I listened to the recordings, so I do.
But you have no proof.
I have no proof that I can currently present to you.
Thank you, Your Honor. I have no further questions.
Redirect if any.
I have no redirect, Your Honor.
Thank you. Does the defense rest?
The defense rests their case, Your Honor.
Thank you. All right, let's have closing arguments for the prosecution.
Before I begin, can you all see and hear me clearly? And then I would also like to remind Your Honor that I have asked to reserve any remaining time for rebuttal.
Whatever time remains, if any, you may reserve for rebuttal. You may proceed whenever you're ready.
Thank you. Ladies and gentlemen of the jury, today you have heard the story of a disgruntled teenager with a history of violent outbursts when they did not get their way. On March 6, 2020, Avery Becker, mad at their mock trial coach for kicking them off the team, broke into their coach's home, committing second-degree burglary and then first-degree murder when their coach died in the course of this break-in. Avery Becker's tragic arrogance and tragic choices led to a tragic consequence: the death of their coach, Mackenzie Brackman. In order to prove that Avery Becker committed burglary in the second degree, we must have proven that Avery Becker entered unlawfully into a person's home with the intent to commit criminal mischief against another person or property. Today, we have done just that. To show you that Avery Becker broke into Mackenzie Brackman's home, we presented expert testimony of Jordan Markowitz, who showed you Exhibit 16, depicting the exact course that Avery Becker took to get to Mackenzie Brackman's home on March 6th, triangulated through expert analysis of cell phone records from that day. You also saw Exhibit 12, video footage of someone matching Avery Becker's exact height and build, breaking into Mackenzie Brackman's home on March 6th. You also heard the testimony of Alex Dufuentes, a fellow teammate of Avery Becker, who testified to the long-time animosity between Avery Becker and her coach, Mackenzie Brackman. Alex also told you about Avery's history of vandalizing her coach's car when she was simply frustrated with him during practice. You also saw text evidence of a conversation between Avery Becker and Alex Dufuentes in which Avery stated her intent to travel to her coach's home, break in, and trash it. Avery Becker had the motive and did break into Mackenzie Brackman's home on March 6th with the intent to commit criminal mischief. In order to prove that the defendant committed felony murder in the first degree, we must have proven that 1, Avery Becker committed second-degree burglary, and 2, in the course of this break-in, the death of a person was caused by anyone. Through expert witness Kyle Cusack, you heard the story of a break-in gone wrong. Avery Becker, mad at their mock trial coach for kicking them off the team, traveled to their coach's home and broke in. And in the course of a struggle between Avery Becker and Mackenzie Brackman, Avery Becker grabbed a knife from her coach's home and stabbed Mackenzie Brackman in the back, murdering him. Now, the defense has tried to distract you today with wild theories about Blair Rollins and some far-fetched ideas of manufactured texts. But all of these theories are vague and speculative. Instead, you have heard us, the prosecution, present ample evidence to prove beyond a reasonable doubt that Avery Becker committed second-degree burglary and first-degree murder on March 6th, 2020. The events that occurred on March 6th were a tragedy, but Avery Becker must accept the tragic consequences of their tragic choices. So, we, the prosecution, ask that you find the defendant, Avery Becker, guilty of all charges. Thank you.
Thank you. Defense is closing.
Yes, Your Honor, I have a closing.
Go ahead whenever you're ready, counsel.
Thank you. Ladies and gentlemen of the jury, it is on the prosecutors to prove that my client is guilty. Avery Becker has no burden to prove herself as innocent. Now, the defense technically doesn't have a duty to do anything, but we did. We, the defense, provided evidence to dispute and to bring you all to light around about the doubts that exist around this case. We showed you everything to make sure all the things that the prosecution failed to tell you, you knew. The evidence and testimonies of witnesses show that Avery Becker has fallen victim due to corrupt, uncertain, and inconclusive evidence. Throughout this case, you have been exposed to fake text, corrupt photos, and vague assumptions that the prosecution hopes you won't think too much about. We, the defense, have come to you, the jury, so that someone who is a victim of circumstance isn't split from family and friends right out of their high school years. You must be certain, beyond a reasonable doubt, that this young, aspiring person could have done such a terrible deed. According to expert witness Professor Blake Van Owen, cell towers are just not accurate and should not be even compared to GPS. Avery didn't even have her phone on her person at that time. No one can conclusively prove where Avery was or where Avery's phone was. Ladies and gentlemen of the jury, there is a burden of proof the prosecution must prove. Now tell me, does the height and build of a masked, cloaked, and unknown stranger prove to you that Avery killed this man? Is there any physical proof that Avery was in that home? This isn't a home invasion gone wrong, as the prosecution says. If it was, the perpetrator would have just left if someone was in the home. The person went to Brackman's home with the intent to kill, and Avery had no intent to do any harm. The prosecution also claims that the defense is full of speculation theories, and I have yet to hear one speculation objection. If you look closely at Exhibits 1 and 4, you can clearly see that Mr. Brackman's right arm is in two different distinct positions, one next to his ear and shoulder, and the other over his head. With these photos, you can clearly see that the crime scene has been tampered with and moved around. It doesn't matter who moved the body or why, but the body was moved while pictures were being taken. And that's yet another piece to add to this botched investigation. Key photos and blood droplets were lost and corrupted after maybe 1 or 2 people saw them. Witness Kyle Cusack can't even confirm what he testified about. He even showed up at the crime scene after it was processed. Prosecution witness Kyle Cusack also claims that the person in the ring video has a similar height and build to Avery Becker. Plenty of other people had the opportunity to murder Brackman, and never once did the police consider that it is also a similar height and build of a Blair Rollins, overlooking another key piece of evidence. The investigation that was done regarding the death of Mackenzie Brackman did no justice for him. The prosecution will deny the correct justice of a man who defended so many others. We know Brackman was a criminal defense attorney, so that means Brackman was a lawyer police do not like. The lead detective, Detective Markowitz, has a faulty personal connection to this investigation and to Brackman. They would have rushed over the investigation, so the death of a lawyer, a defender of people, would be over and forgotten quickly. During Blake Van Owen's testimony, we know that Blair was not at school on the day of the murder either. And Blake also told us that Blair hated Brackman for sending her dad to prison. Motive and opportunity, right there. Blair also disappeared a day before the murder, and yet the police did not feel it necessary to look into her as a suspect. Even after an extensive search on the defense's side, Blair Rollins is nowhere to be found. And Avery loved mock trial, and she has the awards to prove it. She dedicated her entire high school to mock trial, so why would she kill the person who helped her grow this spark of hers so much? People of the courtroom, the defense came before you to show you all the areas of doubt in this case. This is a case about all the things we don't know. There was no physical evidence to identify anybody at the crime scene. We don't know how the text messages came to be. Blood droplets photos were lost and photos were corrupted. And key suspects overlooked. It all adds up to a bad investigation, and that, ladies and gentlemen of the courtroom, is reasonable doubt. Reasonable doubt is a doubt which arises from a fair and rational consideration of all of the evidence or lack of evidence. Seeing everything we showed you, we, the defense, ask you, return a verdict of not guilty on account that there is reasonable doubt clear in this case. Thank you.
Thank you, counsel. Rebuttal closing.
Yes, Your Honor. And before I begin, can I get a time check, please?
Go
Yes,
ahead.
you have, oh, sorry, Your Honor. Yeah, you have 1 minute and 2 seconds.
Thank you. Now,
Whenever you're ready.
the defense has tried to sow seeds of doubt today, saying that we did not present enough evidence to convict. But you yourselves have heard the concrete evidence today. Who matched the height and build of the video from the scene? Avery Becker. Whose phone records showed them traveling to their coach's house on March 6th? Avery Becker. Who sent texts stating their intent to break in? Avery Becker. Who had a long-time animosity with Mackenzie Brackman? Avery Becker. Who stated that they would get Brackman if it was the last thing she did? Avery Becker. When you look at all the evidence, it is clear who it points to. So, we, the prosecution, once again, ask you to find the defendant Avery Becker guilty of all charges. Thank you.
Thank you. All right, folks, while the scoring judges are adding up their scores and submitting them, I'm going to offer a few comments, and then I'm going to ask each of our scoring judges to do the same. Mine are fairly generic comments, but I think they're important. I've been on the bench coming up on 12 years here pretty soon, and I think this is the 12th year that I've also done the presiding judge in the high school mock trial competition, and have never ceased to be so impressed every year. And this year is no exception by the quality of the presentations, the professionalism, the enthusiasm that you guys show, getting into character, whether it's as an attorney or as a witness. I'm just so impressed by that. I know that I would have been terrified to do anything like this in high school and probably even in college. So the fact that you guys are doing it now, not only is just impressive to me, but I know that these are life skills for all of you. So whether you go on to practice law or do anything else, just the ability to get up and talk in front of people, to advocate, to just do the things you're doing here will serve you so well into the future. I really am very impressed by everything that you guys do. I say it every year and I mean it. You guys come across better than some of the attorneys that we see in the courtroom. One, that's kudos to you. Two, it's unfortunate that there are people out there that are attorneys that can't even perform as well, I suppose, but I think it really is so impressive that you're able to do so. So let's see if any of our scoring judges are ready to offer some comments. Mr. Stevens, are you ready to offer some comments?
Sure. Thanks, Judge. And I want to echo all of the comments that Judge Butler just made. I thought you all did a great job. Very impressed with everyone's preparation. It was very obvious that you've been well coached and you've acted on the advice that you've been given. I thought overall the direct examinations you all did a great job asking open-ended questions of your witnesses, letting them be the star of the show. And then on cross-examination, I thought you all did a very good job asking tight questions. I like how on one of the crosses, you did a good job. When the witness started kind of trying to get in some extra words, he said, "So just so we're clear, you agree with me, right?" I thought that was very effective. I thought just overall, all the examinations were great. I thought the witnesses were great. You all had a really good command of the information, and that was wonderful. And then the closings both of them were very good. Try not to be reliant on the notes. I know it's hard, and try to talk in a nice, not too fast. But overall, I thought, those are kind of nitpicky. I thought you all did a really good job, and particularly the virtual adds a wrinkle there. And I thought you all handled that very well. It's a lot easier to talk to people in the courtroom than to just look at your computer screen. So great job.
Thanks, Mr. Stevens, and I apologize for my tech issue. Second time in 2 hearings, so it happens. Ms. Fearon, do you want to offer a few comments and observations?
Yes, I'll offer a few comments, and I want to echo what Judge Butler and Doug both said, and I am so impressed with all of you. As somebody who is in law school and presented with these sorts of challenges as I go through my education, I'm looking at you guys and thinking, I can see you across the room from me and having conversations in my classes. And I think if any of you have those desires, go for it. What you've done here today shows that you absolutely have the skills to do it. So the other comments I'm going to make are really, they're kind of nitpicking, as Doug said, but in a couple of situations, if you had tongue slips and those things, there were a lot of apologies for those tongue slips. Let them go. You don't need to apologize for every one of them. It happens. And I think most of us wouldn't have noticed it. You notice it because you know all the details and you know what you plan to say, but we don't necessarily notice it. Yeah, the tech issues, the lights going off, having to handle that and handling it gracefully. And, it would have thrown me for a loop, and you just dealt with it and moved on. So dealing with those tech things, they happen in life, and they're happening in courtrooms every day right now and in corporate meetings and those sorts of things. So kudos to you guys for dealing with those and being able to get right back on track. And then, yeah, some of the crosses and controlling the answers, I really noticed that, and being able to really not let the witness take off on a tangent you didn't want them to go on. I was really impressed by that. So great job, everybody.
Thank you, Ms. Fearon. And as Ms. Soul mentioned earlier, she was my law clerk way back in the day, and she saved me many times then, and she saved me again tonight when I had a tech issue. Thank you, Lila. I appreciate it. Your comments and observations?
Yeah, one thing I wanted to tell everybody is this is my second career, so I didn't even walk into a courtroom until I was 30 years old. So you guys are way ahead of the curve if you're ever interested in getting into this profession, and you did do great. Trial work is still my biggest challenge. A lot of legal work, as you know from this, comes with the preparation. I consider myself a good preparer, but at the end, it's really difficult to get everything to come together, and you guys did a wonderful job. I think you all did great. I wanted to call out just a few things with specifics. Ms. Goldman, I thought you did fantastic in responding to a hearsay exception, to a hearsay objection with the exceptions. Those are super difficult. Hearsay is a really difficult thing to maneuver. So you were really getting into the technical part of it. So I like that. And that's such a big part of trial work is hearsay. So that was great. Ms. Hires wanted to say professional, super professional, definitely knowledge of the case, and great use of your hands when you were in closing. I know from watching attorneys, it's when you're in, now we don't see it so much, but when you're in the courtroom, really difficult to know sometimes how to hold yourself. And I thought you did a great job at that. And that might seem like a simple thing, but if you've already got it going now, you're gonna really succeed. Also, great job dealing with the lights off. That was wonderful, because all kinds of things happen in court. I'm a big believer that we all are humans and put our pants on one leg at a time, every single person in the courtroom. And so that's one of the things you just have to remember and roll with whatever. And then the last one, Miranda McCoy, very, very smooth, prepared, and really skilled. From my perspective, that cross at the end was well done. Crosses are hard. I know you guys have prepared for it, but even so, it's really difficult because that's on the fly a little bit more, and you obviously have the skill to do that. So y'all did great. It was wonderful. This is my first year doing this, so it was really great. I do agree. You're leagues ahead of where so many people are. So great job.
Thank you all, and I wish you the best of luck going forward, both in this competition and anything you do. Thank you again to our scoring panel, taking the time to do this. And with that, we're going to conclude for the evening. So great job, and I wish you the best of luck. Bye now.